Here's something that's going to bother you for the rest of the day. We live in a time with more therapists per capita than any civilization in history, more self help books than the Library of Alexandria ever held, more mental health apps than you could download in a lifetime. And we are, by most measures, more anxious than ever. Now, the ancient Maya had none of that. No DSM, no SSRIs, no Sunday Scaries Reddit thread. And yet, the psychological frameworks they built into daily life are so sophisticated, so precise, that modern researchers are only now catching up to what they actually understood. So the question isn't, did the Maya care about mental health? The question is, what did they know that we forgot? Let's say you've had a rough week. Maybe work is chaos. Maybe a relationship is fraying. Maybe you feel just untethered, like something's off and you can't name it. What do? If you're like most people, you either try to distract yourself, scroll, binge, busy yourself to death, or you spiral inward, replaying the same anxious loop in your head until 3 a.m. Both of those are pretty lonely situations, right? It's just you alone with your brain, fighting your brain. Now, here's what's wild. The Maya would have looked at that situation and said, "Oh, we understand exactly what's wrong, and it has almost nothing to do with your thoughts." To understand Mayan mental health, you have to understand one core idea, and it's deceptively simple. The Mayans did not separate the mind from the body from the community, or the community from the cosmos. That's it. That's the whole framework. In Western psychology, we tend to think of mental health as an individual problem, something happening inside your skull that you fix with individual interventions, therapy, medication, journaling, solo work. The Maya thought that was like trying to fix a river by treating one water molecule. They had a concept, expressed throughout their cosmology and ritual practice, that well being was a state of alignment. In Mayan languages like Yucatec, concepts of health and illness were embedded in words that referenced balance between forces, not just physical or emotional states. Think of it this way. Imagine your mental health like a spinning top. When it's in alignment, when the tip is perfectly centered, it spins smoothly. You feel grounded, present. Now imagine four things are tugging at the top simultaneously: your body, your relationships, your environment, and something larger than yourself. Call it purpose, meaning, the divine, whatever resonates with you. If any one of those pulls too hard or goes slack, the top wobbles. The Mayans built their entire social and spiritual infrastructure to keep all four of those in balance at the same time. Here's how that actually worked in practice. First, ritual as nervous system regulation. The Maya engaged in highly structured, repetitive communal rituals, dances, ceremonies, offerings, tied to a precise calendar system. And here's the thing: modern neuroscience has a name for what rhythmic, synchronized group movement does to the human brain. It triggers oxytocin release, drops cortisol, and creates what researchers call self other merging, a temporary dissolution of the sense of isolated selfhood. In other words, it biologically reduces the feeling of being alone with your problems. They weren't doing this because they read a study. They were doing it because it worked, and they built it into the architecture of daily life. Second, narrative as meaning making. The Maya had the Popol Vuh, their creation epic, but it wasn't just mythology, it was a psychological operating manual. The hero twins at its center go through death, humiliation, failure, and resurrection, not once, but cyclically. The message encoded in that story is radical. Suffering is not an error in the system, it is the system. It has shape, a rhythm, and an end. That is meaning making. And we know from Viktor Frankl, the modern trauma research from narrative therapy, that one of the most powerful things a human being can do when in psychological pain is locate themselves inside a story that makes the suffering make sense. The Mayans had that story baked into their culture from childhood. You didn't have to find meaning alone. The culture handed it to you. Third, time as a mental health tool. The Mayan calendar wasn't just a scheduling device, it was a psychological technology. Each day had a character, a patron, an energy, a set of qualities, and people oriented their behavior, decisions, and reflections around that. If today is a day of stillness and retrospection in the calendar, you rest, you reflect, you don't force action. Sound familiar? That's basically what therapists now call pacing and titration, not pushing against your emotional state, but working with the rhythm of your inner life rather than against it. The calendar gave the Maya permission, built into their cosmology, to honor cycles of rest, intensity, grief, and celebration as equally valid and expected. So, what do you actually do with this? I'm not saying you need to start performing ceremonial rituals, though honestly, your Thanksgiving dinner and your birthday traditions are doing more psychological work than you realize for exactly the same reasons. But here are three things you can take directly from the Mayan framework. One, stop treating mental health as a solo project. The Maya understood that isolation is the pathology, not just a symptom of it. If you're struggling, the intervention isn't more alone time with your thoughts. It's finding a rhythm with other people. Even something as simple as a regular shared meal, a walking group, a consistent ritual with a friend. Two, get a story that holds your suffering. This doesn't have to be religious. It can be philosophical, it could be scientific. The universe is 13.8 billion years old, and you are a temporary and astonishing arrangement of atoms. Whatever it is, find a frame that makes your pain part of something, not just a malfunction. Three, respect your cycles. You're not supposed to feel the same every day. The Mayans calendared their ups and downs. You can do the same. Track your energy. Honor low periods as legitimate, not as failures to be optimized away. The Maya didn't have a word for mental health the way we do because they didn't have a concept of mental health as separate from everything else. And maybe that's the most radical takeaway of all. We've spent decades trying to treat the mind in isolation, and we are, collectively, not doing great. Maybe the answer isn't a better app. Maybe it's remembering what civilizations who lasted thousands of years already figured out, that you cannot be well alone, in a vacuum, disconnected from meaning, from rhythm, from each other. You were never supposed to spin that top by yourself.